So oftentimes when working with language models and true chat models in LangChain, when working with your language models, especially in the context of building an application, you don't want to get all the story that they have to generate. Yeah, these chat models, they are chat models, so they will be chatty. They are going to always respond in a conversational style. But they sometimes when you're working with these models, you just want to extract some pieces of information, some specific pieces of information. That's what you want from the model. You don't need all the storytelling. You don't need all the conversational style that they're going with. You just need specific information. For example, if you query the language model for weather information in a particular city, let's say New Orleans, let's say some Cairo, Egypt, you just want specific information. Give me the weather, probably the weather prediction for the morning or afternoon or night. You just need specific information, and just in your application, that's what I said in the context of developing an application, you just need those pieces of information to probably feed into another process. So LangChain allows us to do that with something called structured output. Structured output. You can get structured output from your language model instead of getting all the text, the full text, the full response as text. You just want to extract pieces of information either as a JSON object or just as a set of parameters. So LangChain allows us to do that. And in this video, we're going to be looking at two ways we can do that. The JSON way and the pedantic way. That's using JSON, using a JSON schema, or using a pedantic class. We're going to be looking at those two ways, and we're going to be extracting information from a response, from a model response about a president. Yeah, we've been on presidents a lot. We're going to continue with that for now. So we're going to query for a president, and want it to just give us the name of the president, the country of the president, and the age of the president. We just want those three pieces of information. We don't need all the story. We just want those three pieces of information. And we're even going to make the age optional. Like if you don't, the age is not compulsory. So if you don't have the age, it's fine. You can just leave that. But we need the name of the president and we need the country for that president. We're going to be setting that up with both a JSON schema and a pedantic class. So let's begin. But let's look at the steps first. I've written some steps here that we need to take. I love steps, and for most of the tutorials we'll be having, we're going to talk about the steps. So the first thing you want to do, you want to define the schema of the data you want back. Everything with structured output starts with a schema. You have to define what you want back and how you want it. So we're going to define the schema of the data that you want extracted. Like I said, we're first going to use a JSON schema. The JSON schema is standard for function calling, and we're also going to use a pedantic class. Then once you have that, on your model, you call the function or the method with structured output. You call it with structured output method, and you pass it the schema. And this will return a model, another version of the model that will not return that full textual response, but return the structured output. Yeah, it will just return the structured output. That's what that model will return as its response. So you get that. Once you get that, that is when you then invoke. That is the version of the model that you then invoke with your prompt, and then you get your structured response back. Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. That's the whole gist of what we have to do today. So to begin, the first thing I'm going to do is put my environment, my OpenAI key. I'll put my OpenAI key in the environment. So let's just do that pretty fast. OpenAI export, OpenAI API key. Now, I'm not going to be repeating this again. You should already get the gist about API keys. So yeah, we have it in place. Let's go out of that. And I'm going to create a new file. And we'll call this structured. Oh, I still have caps lock on. So structured output with JSON. So we're going to start with the JSON schema version. So structured output with JSON. To begin, first let us just bring in our model from LangChain OpenAI. Let us import chat OpenAI. And let's just set up our model. So model equals chat OpenAI. And we pass it the model parameter, which is all we need now. Pass the model parameter GPT-4o. Then I'm also going to set the temperature. I'm going to set the temperature to 0. Now, why am I setting the temperature? Because I need information about the president and I don't need hallucinations. Don't hallucinate a president for me. So temperature value 0. Yeah. I feel it will still get it right even if I don't set the temperature. But I'm just trying to be very, very cautious. Yeah. And also, just to show you that how you can apply temperature. So temperature 0. So the next thing we're going to do is create a schema. We're going to create a schema. And the schema can be quite intimidating at first when you see the structure. But it's the OpenAPI specification, not OpenAI. The OpenAPI specification for defining a function. That is what all these APIs use. OpenAI's API, Gemini's API, they all use the OpenAPI schema definition for a function. So if you already know that, bam, this is already a piece of cake for you. So we're going to create a schema as a variable. I'm going to call it president schema. Now, even I struggle knowing the the order of the elements in this. So sometimes I'm just going to be referring to my notes. But yeah, we're going to be walking through this together. Now, the first thing you want to do is define a name for your schema. So I'm going to call this, so you have a name property. So you define a name for your schema. I'm going to call this president. Sorry, fat fingers. President info schema. Yeah, president info schema. The next parameter is description. Yeah, description. So you need a description for your schema. What's your schema supposed to do? And for this, it just gets information about the president. Gets information about the president. So that's the description. That's what the schema is meant to do. The next parameter is parameters. No pun intended. Next parameter is parameters. So you have parameters, and what parameters basically specify are the so it's set to an object. First is set to an object. Yeah, set to an object. And what it specifies what you want to return, what you want to have returned, what you want to extract from what the model will typically respond with. So that's what parameters are. The first property you set in parameters is the type. If you have more than one, definitely this is going to be an object. So if you're getting more than one thing, it has to be an object. So you set it as object. The next thing is properties. Now, in the typical OpenAPI fashion, these are meant to be like your function arguments. That's what they represent, function arguments. So like when you transfer this knowledge to tool calling or function calling when we're working with chat models, yeah, these are going to be parameters for the functions that the model is going to suggest to you. So, but in the context of structured output, these are what you want to extract from the model, which is the same thing that happens in function calling, because at the end of the day, in function calling, you're trying to extract parameters for a particular function that is to be called. So properties in the context of structured output is what you want to extract from the model that is going to respond to your query. So properties, this is where you define what you want to return. The first thing we want to return is, we're going to call it name. We want to return the name of the president. I told you we want to get the name of the president, we want to get the country of the president, and we want to get the age of the president. So the first is the name. The first property we want is the name. Now these are your own defined properties. So it's not like this is a standard property. No, I want to get the name of the president, and for that property, I'm giving it the name. I'm giving it the name. I can call it president. I can go ahead and say president name, but I just want to call it name. That already is okay for me. Now I'm going to define properties for this. I'm going to describe this using properties. So for name, for the name of the president, the first is the data type. the data type. So what's the data type? Here it is a string. The name of the president is a string. So I just wanted a string back. The second parameter to define this is description. Now, this is where you have to be very, very specific and descriptive, because this is what will help the model to know exactly what it is to extract. Because if there are two similar things within the model's response, and you don't define what you want exactly or correctly, it can pick up the wrong thing because they're similar, because two things are very, very similar to each other. So don't try to be vague, specifically define or describe what this parameter is. So what is the name parameter? Name parameter is simply the name of the president. So the name of the president. So it's not like I'm just saying a name. Like some people can be that lazy and just say a name. No, the name of the president. The name of the president. So the next thing that we want to get back, next property we want to extract is the country. Yeah, the country. So we want to extract the country. The type is also string. Type for country is also string. So we go with that. The description. The description will be country of the president. That's the same president. Country of the president. Country of the president. So we have country, we have name. The last thing we want to extract is age. We want to extract the age of the president. And the data type for this is going to be set as an integer, definitely, because an age is definitely an integer, definitely an integer. But remember when I said we want to make the age optional. So the OpenAI API way of doing this is passing in an array. Yeah, get to pass in an array. And first, we want an integer back. But we're also good with null, because it's optional. We're also good with null. So if you can't find the age, you can also return null. It's also an accepted data type. So we're cool. We're cool. So we pass an array and we get those. The next thing is going to be the description, definitely. And so just age of the president is enough. Age of the president. Cool. So here's our schema. Our schema is done. And also, like I said, we want some properties to be compulsory and some properties to be optional. So one of the properties we're going to define is the required property. I think that should be around here. Required is around here, right? Oh, yeah, sorry. I need to give this. This is JSON, so everything has to be in quotes. So required. And the two that we really require are name and country. Age is optional. So this is the part that actually sets age as optional. This just says, if you return null, it's fine. So in case the model decides not to return an age and it returns null for this age property, we won't get an error because we already told it, yeah, you can give us null and we're cool with that. But if you get it, give us an integer. So the required ones are name and country. So these are our schema. The name of the schema, which is a president info schema. That's just for you to label it. The description of the schema, which is that it gets information about the president. Then we set parameters, which are the stuff we want to extract. Because it's more than one, it will definitely be an object. Then we're going to define each item that we want to extract as a property. And we give the property names and we describe them. Give them names and we describe them. Using a type and description, using the type and description properties. The type is going to set the data type for that property, the data type that we expect for that property. And the description is going to help us to define what that property is. That is what is going to help the model to pick that particular property from its response. So once we have this, the next thing we're going to do is then call the with structured output method and pass in the schema. We call the with structured output method on our model and pass the schema. So I'm going to say structured model, because when we call that function, it's going to return a version of the model that will return a structured output, not the textual verbose response. It will just return a structured output. So I'm going to say structured LLM is equal to model dot with structured output. Then we pass it our schema, which is president schema. So I can just copy this, scroll down, and pass it president schema. So we now have a different version of our model, which is the version that returns a structured output. So structured LLM, this is good. Now we can say response equals, and this time we use our structured LLM and invoke it with our query. We invoke it with our query. And what do we ask it? Who is the president of France? Who is the president of France? Well, we're already giving you one of the answers, which is country. Say, who is the president of France? But sometimes you can say, okay, who is the president that signed the peace deal between so-so and so-so? And it will still figure out the country of that president. So, who is the president of France? And let's just print out the response. Let's see what the response will give us. Now the response. Yeah. So first we set up our model. Then we created our schema. And we pass our schema to the with structured output method of the model, which gives us a structured model. And we then invoke our structured model with our prompt and print our response. So let us pull up our command line. Let's hope we don't have any errors. And let us run this code. Let's say Python structured output with, oh, I didn't even spell this correctly. strc. Well, should we? Let's correct that now. Yeah, let's not leave it behind and have technical depth. So structured here. So structured, yeah. So structured, good. So now we can say structured output with JSON. Structured output with JSON. Let's pull this up. Yeah, structured output with JSON. Let me open the file again so that we can have it up here. Good. So Python structured output with JSON. Save this. Let's hope that we don't have any errors. Let's run it. Run it. Remember to have your API key in the environment. And now we have our response back. We have a dictionary back. And it gives us the name. The name of the president of France is Emmanuel Macron. The country is France and his age is 45. Yeah. How clean is that? We've been able to take our model's response and only extract what we need from it. Awesome. All by defining this very amazingly long JSON schema. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Now let's see how we can do it with Pydantic. I'm going to close out of this. Create a new file. With Pydantic, it's going to be the same steps. Just that this time we're going to be using the Pydantic class instead of JSON schema. So let's say structured. Oh, I'm sorry, structured wrong again. Structured output with Pydantic.py. Structured output with Pydantic.py. So we have that in place. Let me close the notes. So with Pydantic, I'm going to just copy my model setup from here so that we don't have to repeat that. Cool. So we have that in place. Now let us create our Pydantic class. The first thing we're going to do is say from Pydantic. Let's bring in Pydantic. Okay. So from Pydantic, let us import our base model. Let's import our base model and our field. Yeah, field. base model and field. Let's import base model and field. So from Pydantic, we get base model and field. Then I mentioned that we're going to be having the age as optional. So that means we have to create one of the fields in our Pydantic class as optional. So I'm just going to be taking help from the typing class, from typing and import optional. So import optional. So yeah, looks like we have everything we need to. Yeah, we have everything we need to import. So let us create our Pydantic class. Let's create our Pydantic class, which is going to define our schema. Instead of the JSON definition, now we're using a Pydantic class to define what we want to extract. So to begin, we're going to say class, and I'm going to call it president. I'm going to call the class president, and we'll pass it the base model. Base model. Pass it the base model, and then we can start writing some magic. So now the first thing you want to do is to describe what this class is all about. Now, comments that you leave in this class is going to help the model to better understand what you're trying to do, even though some things are kind of picked up intuitively by the model. So first, let's put a comment that describes what the class does. So I'm going to say details about the president. Details about the president. So just like we, in our JSON schema, we had like a general, a top level description for the schema itself. This is what this represents in Pydantic. So the model is going to pick that up and say, oh, yeah, I need to get details about the president. So details about the president. Now let us start creating our fields. The first field is going to be the name, and it's going to be of type string. It's going to be of type string. Then we can create a Pydantic field for that. And all we need to do is set the description property for that field. So we want to extract the name. The data type is string. Then we create a Pydantic field, since we're working with Pydantic, and describe what we want to extract. And just similar to what we did with JSON schema, or just a name of president. Name of president. That's neat, right? So we have the name of the president. What is the next thing? That will be the country of the president, which is also of data type string. I'll create a field with the description. With a description that says country of the president. Country of the president. Let me put the here too. Name of the president. So name of the president, country of the president. Next, we're going to create an age field. And like I said, this age field is going to be optional. So we're going to call the optional type from typings and pass it int. So we expect an integer value, but we're cool if it's just non-existent. So it's an optional field. Then we'll create a Pydantic field. First, I'm going to set a default of none. So that if we get none back, we're cool. The description is going to be age of the president. Age of the president. So, age of the president. So now we have our fields. We have our three fields: name, country, and age. And this completes our schema definition. Yeah, this is how we define a schema with Pydantic. So this completes our schema definition, and we can proceed to use this to create our structured LLM. So I'm just going to jump out of this class definition and say structured LLM equals model dot with structured output and passing this class, this Pydantic class. So passing the president class into the with structured output method. So we get our structured LLM, and with this in place, we can say response equals structured LLM dot invoke. Structured LLM dot invoke, and we can pass who is the, let's use US this time. Who is the president? of the US. Who is the president of the US? And finally, we print out our response. And note how we are printing response. We're not printing response or content. We're printing response because our structured output is returned directly in the response. So we don't need to say response or content. So print response, that's good. And now let us take this for a spin. Let's take this for a spin. So I'm just going to pull up the command line and clear it. Then now we run Python structured output with Pydantic. So Python structured output with Pydantic. Let's hit enter. Wait for the response, and boom. Yup. We have our details back. We have the name, Joe Biden. Definitely that is wrong because it's 2025 and it's no longer Joe Biden. This March 2025 and it's no longer Joe Biden. So name Joe Biden, country United States of America. Remember we just told the model US, but it was able to extract the country as United States of America. And age 80. I tried doing this with Gemini once and it kept refusing to return the age. Yeah, every time I tried over and over again. In fact, at a point, I think I even kind of specified the age or so, and Gemini refused. I think Gemini is super ethical. Is one of the most ethical, even to a fault. Gemini can be ethical to a fault because the age is public information. Why don't you want to reveal it? But for some reason, Gemini saw that as very personal information and decided not to return it. And I noticed when I went behind the scenes and queried directly, I saw that it wasn't still returning the age. It just felt like, yeah, no, that's an area I won't want to touch. It was quite funny. Anyway, so that is how you return structured output in chat models.